Welcome to the Maine Basketball Rankings podcast. I, of course, am your host, basketball data nerd, Lucas McNally. We're back after a little bit of a hiatus for July and a big chunk of August because really there's not a whole lot going on. There's some summer ball, Coney League, 800 rumors about who may be transferring where. Some of those are going to come true, some of those probably not. But so it seems like a good time to take a break, and I had some other stuff to take care of. I had to wrangle and edit of my feature film, which I've got in decent shape. But we're back. I'm trying out a little bit of a different formatting here, doing a solo introduction before we get to the conversation with Steve Carey. It's a really interesting thing about AAU and college basketball and recruiting and where those things intertwine. Some housekeeping. You already know that fall sports practices have started. They've already started soccer games up in the county. Gonna have rankings and everything for football, soccer, and field hockey this year. Haven't started on the soccer stuff yet, even though they have started playing games because I need all the schedules, and not all the schedules are uploaded into the MPA's master schedule thing. And if I try to pull just partials, really quickly becomes a mess, and it's not worth it for that few number of games that are being played there. So when those schedules get up a little closer to the season, that'll all get up and running. And so if you're a person who has a subscription, a paid subscription, and you sort of shut it off during the summer, this is the time you want to think about turning it back on. Also working on some previews. We're gonna get someone in here to preview football. I think we're doing a soccer preview. I'm gonna try to get a field hockey preview. I haven't found a person to talked about field hockey yet. So if you are the person who loves to talk about field hockey, that's awesome. Give me reach out and we'll set something up. So I think that's just about it. And so let's go straight to my conversation with Central Maine Community College assistant coach and the director of Southern Maine Sting, Steve Carey. Okay, my guest today is the director of Southern Maine Sting basketball, which I am reading off this nice piece of paper that he sent me, and an assistant coach at Central Maine Community College. Steve Carey, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
So you sent Adam Robinson and I because we saw the Maine Sting jerseys on Twitter. Let me pull one up that I don't fit into. I was just saying I'm like Tim Walz's players at the convention who can't fit into jerseys anymore. This very nice shirt that works better if you're not doing nonsense green screen stuff. And you were nice enough to send us some because they look really cool. And then we were talking, and I thought, well, I should have you on the show because I'm really fascinated with what's going on at CMCC in general and the whole AAU thing. I don't know. I'm confused by the AAU thing a little bit.
Well,
but,
it is
but
very confusing. So,
yeah, I think I'm like was initially wary because I'm old school and I'm initially wary of AAU things because it seems it can so easily get sleazy,
yes.
you know? And but I'm interested in people who are able to navigate that without it turning into some weird cash grab. And I think part of it is coming from independent film, there's all of these things that are set up to take money from you off your dreams of how you're going to make it big. And it
Yes.
seems, and it just throws up all those red flags for me of like, you know, $100 for this online festival that no one's gonna watch, and we're not even gonna watch your film, and then we're just gonna show it and whatever. So how do you navigate that?
Well, first, I think the love of basketball was why I was involved in it and working with kids. And so for me, that was the most important thing. Developing kids, working with them. It was never the goal to get every one of them in D1 basketball, like a lot of people propose it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so as a parent, you got to be very careful on what program you put your kid in and what coach they have, because some of the programs essentially get as many kids as they can, form as many teams as they can, and throw whatever coaches they can at it.
Right.
Um, and AAU when I was young was for the best of the best players.
Right.
That's
That's why
like,
I didn't play it.
yeah, normal basketball. Like we didn't play it, right? We
Yeah.
played town basketball, a little travel basketball through your town, but you didn't play AAU. It was the Mr. Maine basketball players that were playing the AAU, and it was small teams, and only few teams.
Yeah,
Now,
Andy Bedard was playing AAU, not us.
yes, Andy Bedard, the top guys, and now everyone plays AAU. Essentially, town teams aren't what they used to be now. There's not town travel teams usually. It's more AAU now. And again, it's not always AAU is what we clarify it as, but most of the teams nowadays don't play AAU. We play the club basketball, because the actual AAU around here doesn't, like, we don't even have AAU tournaments in the state of Maine right
Right.
now. We have club basketball tournaments. So I think your thought process is right. Parents
Oh, good.
should be leery of who they put their kid with. False promises that are made by coaches and programs every day, it frankly drives me crazy, and that's why I ended up starting Southern Maine Sting back in 2019, because I had been at some of the bigger programs, and realized it was in some programs, not all of them. Some of the big programs are really good and doing really good development, but it's more about money than the kids in some of
Hmm.
the programs. And so I was lucky enough when I left one of the bigger programs. A couple of coaches wanted to join me and start our own little program, and we got the support of Main Sting, which is a little bigger program up north, and they let me form Southern Maine Sting in 2019 with Mike Damon, was my assistant director, um, and we frankly tried to operate at costs. We weren't
Okay.
making lots of money off of this. We didn't have a lots of overhead. We were renting gyms. We were selling our uniforms at cost. We weren't making profit on those for families. And so our kind of pitch was, hey, we're going to do our best to develop your kid. We're not going to promise you any level of play that they're going to play at the next level. We'll try our best, but we're not going
Hmm.
to promise you anything. And so we started a small club, and I think we were doing it right.
Cool. What are things, if you're a parent and you're not used to this world or whatever, and you got a kid and the kid's pretty good at basketball, but you're a parent, so your view of how good they are is inflated, most of the time, as I'm sure you
A lot
know.
of yeah.
Anytime I sit in the expo or the Augusta Civic Center tourney week, I'm like, your kid's not that good. Okay. Um, what are things that parents should be looking out for? What are some red flags that they wouldn't obviously? I mean, there's some obvious stuff. If the dude looks like a used car salesman, maybe not. But what are some other things people could be looking out for?
Well, first, I would say in general, I think a lot of the coaches in the state of Maine are good coaches and good guys. But yeah, I mean, I think over promising. If they're promising you that your kid, who's 5'4", is going to be a D1 basketball player, it's not
They're not.
realistic. They're not going
Yeah.
to be. Um, what I always say to players and parents is, hey, we'll get your kid to the highest level they can get to, as long as they put in the work, because it's
Right.
really a kid. Coaches help develop kids, but if the kid's not, like, I can't do much with a kid twice a week at
Right.
practice. You know, they've got to take what we teach them at practice twice a week and do it every day. You
Hmm.
know, Kobe Bryant was always famous for saying he got up at like 4 in the morning and practice, and then, and the reason he did that is because he got two more practices in than everyone else, and that's why he was better after 10 years. So it's not over promising is the biggest problem. And frankly, that's one of the things like I chose to do when I started Main Sting is Southern Main Sting, excuse me, is not chase kids. If
Okay.
parents came to me and said, "Hey, this other guy's promising us this, and they're going to go to these bigger tournaments and whatever," I said, "Good, go, good luck. I'm not going to chase your kid. I'm here for who wants to play for me and develop and learn some lessons. Because for me, coaching basketball is about coaching life just as much as basketball. Teaching them how to deal with adversity, how to deal with challenges, how to deal with it appropriately,
Hmm.
and move on. Because for 90% of the kids that are playing basketball in the state of Maine, they're not going to play, probably not actually, probably more like 98%
Yeah.
aren't going to play at a professional level and make a real life out of it. Some of them will play college, and we were pretty successful. We got a lot of kids to play, in college, not D1 scholarships. We never had anyone at Southern Maine staying in the past 5 years go D1 scholarships, but we've had a lot of kids play at, Southern Maine level, at Southern Maine Community College, at Central Maine Community College, at D3, things like that. Um, and frankly, there's nothing wrong with that if that's at the level kids play at.
Oh yeah.
If they play D3 basketball, they're probably going to get a better education than they are going to play D1. You know,
Oh
so,
yeah, probably.
yeah,
Yeah, and I mean you can only do so much in coaching twice a week, 3 times a week, even 5 times a week. But if the kid's not shooting until he can't see the net anymore at home or something like that, then they're not going to be able to maximize their talent, whatever their talent level is.
exactly.
I mean, I don't think Cooper Flag was created by an AAU coach, and it's all it. Like he's putting in the work, he's putting in a lot of work, clearly, and
Well,
that's what you got to do.
and what you don't realize about like the Cooper flags, they're such a small percentage, and Cooper's an absolutely amazing talent, but he's a physical talent. Like, I
Hmm.
mean, he's a physical specimen. Excuse me. He has amazing natural talent. He's got some bloodline talent. His mom was a D1 basketball player, and then he had some great coaching. Andy Bedard is an incredible coach, an extremely hard coach to play for because he's tough on his players. I've seen his practices. Um, and he's had a lot of advantages to get to the right people at the right time, and will be amazing. There's no doubt in my mind that kid's going to be an amazing player. Is an amazing
It's
player.
it's fun to watch. I had a parent come up to me. I was at a summer basketball thing, and he just comes up to me. The first thing he goes is, "This Cooper Flag thing, is it gonna level off at some point?" He's like, "I keep waiting for it to level off," and I think that was right after the practice against the Olympic team or
Yeah,
something, where everyone's like, "Oh my goodness, what the
yeah,
hell is going on here?" Okay, so you're also at CMCC. It's an interesting intersection here of coaching AAU and then also coaching college ball. Um, do they obviously they've got to dovetail in some way. They've got to help each other out. So you're able to see kids, in different settings.
yeah. Well, so the pretty cool way I ended up at CMCC is I was coaching AAU. I was also coaching at St. Dom's Academy. I was the head JV coach and assistant varsity coach under Josh Laprelle. And frankly, I met with Coach Gagne at Central Maine Community College because I was pitching some of my players for him
Sure.
to. In fact, we had a couple of meetings on one of my players in particular. And after a couple of meetings, he called me back up and said, "Hey, are you free today? Can you come down to the school?" And I said, "Sure." And I ran down thinking I was hopefully going to get him to take one of my players.
Yeah.
And he said, "Hey, yeah, I want to talk about your players later, but I want to talk about you." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Hey, I see how you interact with the boys. I'm hearing really good things. I'd love to see if you'd like to join my staff." And I hadn't even thought about it at that point, and I was ecstatic and jumped at the opportunity and absolutely love it. In fact, my role at on AAU is dissipating because my role at CM is increasing every season. So
It's like in the sitcom where you're like the wingman and you go up to the pretty girl and you're like, "Hey, my buddy like really likes you." She's like, "Yeah, but I really like you."
yeah, it was really cool how it happened like that, and it's been an absolute ball. And I'm going into my third season with Coach Gagne at CMCC.
And so
And
you're
to answer your first question, it is
oh yeah.
helpful, right? Because I know a lot of the high school kids in the state of Maine and see them in New England. And so I know a lot of the AU coaches. So it's been very helpful for recruiting, which is, I do the majority of our recruiting up until the point where obviously Coach Gagne is the one offering spots and things like
Right.
that.
So we were gonna do this earlier, but you were in Italy recruiting, right? Am I remembering that
Oh,
correctly?
yeah, not necessarily. I was on a family trip and a cruise in Spain and Italy and France, and I happened to visit one of our alumni in Malta. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so I wasn't
Okay.
necessarily recruiting, but I do try to recruit every time I travel somewhere. So, I did put posts out saying, "Hey, is anyone around that wants me to look at them?" So,
Yeah. So I'm fascinated by this because if you had said to me, Central Maine Community College, their basketball program, I would go, okay, they're gonna have some 1,000 point scorers from Maine, a bunch of Maine kids, your 1,000 point scorers, some Mr. Basketball semifinalists, something like that. And then you look at your roster, and there's a kid from London last year. There's Australian kids or New Zealand kids. How how does that how does that happen?
yeah.
It's weird,
Well,
right?
well, first, the Australian connection Coach Gagne created.
Okay.
Coach Gagne's been coaching at Central Maine Community College for 30 years. He's also the athletic director and head of housing, so he's a huge part of CMCC. And he got a connection with someone. Somehow, he stumbled upon a player in Australia that came,
Okay.
and then he got invited over by that player's family to do some clinics in Australia. And then that started forming the kind of the connection to Australia. Now we've had,
Mm-hmm.
I think, 24 Australian players come through our system
Wow.
this year. Um, and then when I got on, I used some of the connections he had in Australia and informed some of my own. The amazing world of Twitter, which is where you and I communicate through a lot.
Sure.
Um, you can find kids anywhere. Um, and frankly, in Australia, New Zealand, other countries, there's kids that are dying to come to the United States to play basketball at any level. And so, we reach out to them and we say, this is who we are. And, eventually it works out with some. And so, yeah, last year we had three kids from Australia. All three, by the way, have left us and gone on to scholarship level play this year. We had a kid from England that also has moved on to another program. We had a kid from New Zealand, Boston Caldwell, who was a two-time All-American for us, and he's moved on to a D3 program in Pennsylvania to get his 4-year degree. And this year we've got three kids from Australia again, three new kids. We've got a returner from New Zealand, Rocco Chang, and we've got a kid from Croatia this year.
Oh,
Uh, and we've got a great group, by the way, of Mainers too coming in. I mean,
I'm familiar with some of them.
we've got Wyatt Hathaway returning to us, who is a veteran for us, Mr. Basketball finalist, like you said, in his day, and he's an incredible shooter, and I think we're going to see some big things from him this year. And then we've got some great new talent in JT Pound from Freeport, which is one of
Mhm.
my AAU players that I'm really proud
He
of.
he had a great tournament too.
Coach Gagne will say it to you. When I first started pitching JT to him, he said, he's a great kid, he's a good player, and he was interested in him because I was interested in him, and he was one of my players. But then he watched his past year. This past year, JT just took off.
Hmm.
I frankly think he's going to be a really good player for us this year. We got Will Dukes out of Camden Hill that's going to be really good.
He's
Uh,
another late bloomer.
Yep, yep, and we got Ben Francis, out of Ormond.
Oh,
He showed up this preseason in better shape than I've ever seen him in, stronger, leaner,
geez.
and so I think he's gonna be a solid player for us. So we're excited not only about our international players, but our Mainers, and we got a couple of studs out of Connecticut and Florida and Texas that I'm really excited about as well.
So for these international players, do they know where Auburn is? Are they
Most
do
of
they
them
think it
don't. Most
do
of
they
them
think it's
don't.
Portland or like close to
No,
Bangor,
no,
Boston or something?
yeah, no. It's a whole new world to them, right? Most of them never
Right.
been to Maine, don't even really know Maine, so they don't even know Portland. Portland doesn't
Yeah.
mean anything to them necessarily. No, I mean, hey, I've lived in Maine my whole life. I absolutely love the state of Maine.
Hmm.
I don't think there's a better place to live in the world, frankly. And so, that's what we tell them. We tell them this is an amazing area. And I think Auburn area, originally lived down in Cumberland, and we moved up to Greene outside of Lewiston, Auburn, a couple years ago because our boys went to St. Dom's. And I think it's a great area and a safe area in general. And so, parents from Australia, from Croatia, from England, they want to know their kids coming somewhere safe.
Hmm.
We coach and I really care about the kids, and we take care of our guys the best we can here. So I think we put on our best pitch to them, and we've been very lucky. We get some great kids.
What is the pitch to go to a community college as opposed to a D3, or well, probably not a D2. You're probably not competing for D2 talent players.
Yeah.
You're mostly competing with like D3 programs, right? Or in other
Yeah,
community colleges.
see, I would say yes and no. I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're really a D1 talent getting D1 offers, I stop talking to you because you're going to
Yeah,
a level.
you're like, good luck,
Uh,
kid.
Believe it or not, there's some D2 kids that we go after, because um, even though they may have an offer from D2, or they have the kids, by the way, kids say this all the time. I have interest. Okay,
Yeah, interest.
interest means nothing.
It means they have an Instagram post.
Nothing. Um, you know, so until they get a real offer from a school, and then what is their offer? Like, for instance, one of our kids, we're talking with a D2, and it ended up, lo and behold, they thought they were going to get a D2 scholarship, and ended up being a D2 walk-on position. So
Hmm.
if you want to go to a D2 walk-on where you might show up and not make the team, or do you want to go to a program like us who we guarantee, like if we offer a kid for our varsity team, they have a spot. They show up, they're not as good as we think they are, they still have a spot.
Right.
So, yeah. So and for D3, you know, um, I think the big difference between us and a D3 program is a D3 program is a 4 year, and they have a 4 year plan for most of their players. You're going to go there as a freshman. You're probably not going to play.
Right.
As a sophomore, you might break in a little bit of time here and there. But as a junior and senior is when they really start looking at their players as, starters, main role players. We don't have that luxury. We have 2 years with most of our kids. So we almost have to break that down in semesters. So
Hmm.
your first semester might be your freshman year, so you're not going to maybe play as much. But by second semester, you're probably going to get some playing time, and by your second year, you've got to be playing for us, or a starter for us if we're looking at you. So it accelerates your ability to play. We also play a lot of kids our first semester, and to figure out kind of our pecking order and giving everyone a shot.
Sure.
Um, and then we've been, what they call JUCO. We're not officially a JUCO, junior college, because we are in a USCAA program, which the
What's
United.
the difference between JUCO and community college for these
Yeah.
purposes?
So again, I wouldn't even call it community college, but JUCO is a 2 year school like the NJCAA, which people think about nationally. They're only 2 year schools that play in their
Okay.
league. Where we play in the United States Collegiate Athletic Association, the USCAA, and there's a mix of 4 year and 2 year schools. Um, so like, for instance, I think it's a cool experience for our guys because they might be 17 and 18, but at some of these 4 year schools with COVID years and kids making take breaks in between years or whatever, or transferring, they're playing against some 28-year-olds. It's crazy.
28?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You look at some of the
Jeez.
three schools, uh, you know, uh, they can have 27, 28-year-olds in their starting lineup. It's crazy. So,
I was trying to remember when I was 28 and then thinking still being in college.
yeah, I already had a law degree and had kids on the way at 28.
Yeah.
So But so it's a unique experience. The other thing about our level is, we have kids that come to us to get their 2 year degree. They're going to play 2 years, and maybe they'll move to a 4 year degree at some point, and a 4 year playing. But then we have some kids that come to us that say, I might only want to be here 1 year.
Hmm.
My goal is to get up to the scholarship level. And last year, our starting point guard, Birmingham, got a full scholarship to go to another school, and that's what was his goal. He came to us for 1 year, paying some money to come to us, but couldn't necessarily afford a second year, and was looking for a scholarship, and he got it. You know, so that's the goal for some of our kids, and when we pitch to them, we say, "Hey, come to us for 1 year, come to us for 2 years." Some kids even play more than 2 years at us because they might change their major and need a little more time to finish up their schooling or whatever. So.
So a big selling point is the come here. You're not quite ready for D2 or maybe or whatever your goal destination is. Come play here, get some more reps, get some more time, get in the weight room, get bigger, get stronger,
Yes.
that sort of thing, and then move on. And then they still have their 4 years of eligibility, right?
No.
No, so
They're
they'll burn a
usually
year.
about a year. So if they play 1 year here, they got 3 years left
Okay,
for NCAA eligibility. If they play um, 2 years here, they've only got 2 years left. Yeah. No, they're
okay,
using eligibility. The only
okay,
exception to that may be, if they're playing club teams on different schools, have club teams and stuff. You don't use your eligibility, but
okay,
but if you're playing on our main varsity squad, you're losing using your eligibility.
okay, okay.
But again, it's still exactly what you pitched. Get here, get stronger. Like we have almost unlimited access to our gym and our fitness facility, and a lot of schools don't have that. We've had kids come to us saying, "Hey, we didn't have any access, at my last school." So,
Right. Like, do you want to burn a year of eligibility playing 20 minutes a game for CMCC, or do you want to burn it playing garbage time for Bates,
yes,
as
exactly.
to use an example?
Yeah.
Okay. So I have questions about recruiting.
Yeah.
How often, and you don't have to name any names, but you can name names if you want to get people pissed off. Totally up to you. How often are you watching a kid and you're like, I like this kid, he can play whatever, and then you hear the parents in the stands and you go, "Oh no, that's a cross off."
Um, well, so for the way Coach Gagne runs our program and why I like joining him is we have a lot of similar beliefs. We
Hmm.
want good kids. We're not a win at all cost program. Like we want good kids, not just good players, and that includes good families.
Right.
We don't care what economic status they are, any of that. And frankly, the wonderful thing about our school is you don't have to, be the only straight A students either. We've got some students that struggle, and we've got extra help to help them. So, I will say very often we have gone. I'll give you an example without naming names, but
Ah.
there was a very good shooter a couple of years ago in the state of Maine. Um, and if you're a really good shooter, a team can always find a spot for you.
Oh
Right?
yeah.
You don't have to, be the complete all around player that maybe a non good shooter needs to be. Um, but there was certainly a kid that coach and I wanted to go look at because, he was a knockdown shooter. Um, and then, we had already kind of been warned about a parent and how they can be. And literally, after watching this kid play, we were interested in him as a player. But after watching his parent behave in the stands and coach the kid from the stands and
Oh.
scream things and all those things, we said, no, thank you. We didn't even go up to talk to the poor kid afterwards. So parents don't realize that they can do a lot of harm to their kids by the way they behave in the stands. You mentioned up in Augusta, it's quite amazing, how parents, I'm all for the parents that are positive cheering. The other thing I watch for is how are they cheering for the other players?
Mm.
How are the kids? Like when we look at a player, we don't just look at, like how are they playing on the court? Most of the time that's pretty easy to see.
Yeah.
How are they when the coach pulls them out because they're struggling? What are they going to do on the bench? Are they going to kick the chair on the bench on the way down? Or are they going to, how do they interact with their players when they're not playing? Are they cheering on their team? Same thing with the parents. I watch some of the parents, like, okay, yeah, they might cheer wonderfully for their kid, but are they being very negative to the other kids on the team? That's stuff we don't want.
Or are they being negative to the other team?
Yeah, that too. That too. I mean, that comes a lot. I mean, that happens a lot. Yeah. But I mean, obviously, we don't want kids or parents saying things. And they say, what are they saying too? It's one thing to say, oh, that was a bad pass, but it's another to swear or say something like that we
Yeah.
definitely want to be involved in. So,
Or if they're just screaming over the back the
uh,
entire game, you're like, oh,
which is not even a call. That drives me crazy. And I will tell you this past high school season was the best. It was so fun for me because I wasn't coaching high school again, right?
mm,
And so, and my oldest son was the kind of the real intense basketball player and went on to play some college ball. My youngest really played it for fun, right? And so it was really fun going to watch his games because I was there to cheer him on, totally be a dad. I was trying not to coach at all, that type of thing. But listening to the parents that know nothing about basketball, or they know something, but they don't know what they really think they know. And the
yeah,
over the back drives me crazy because there is no call in basketball anymore called over the back. It's a push. So you can literally go over the back as long as you're not pushing the kid down or
yeah,
pushing off the back. So, it is so funny, and our poor refs, there's a reason we have a ref shortage. And
yep,
it's not because we don't have guys and women refs that want to ref and love the game of basketball. It's because of how awful the fans are to them at times.
yeah. I've talked to some of the refs, and they won't necessarily say it exactly, but the impression you get is they don't mind the yelling at the refs. It's just when it gets, because that's part of the game is yelling at the refs. Oh, you blew that call. That was a charge. Blah blah blah. Whatever. It's the over the back yelling and the stuff like
Yeah,
that where they just like you don't even know what you're talking about. Just shut up and cheer.
exactly. Yeah.
I tell people my stepdaughter plays field hockey, and I know nothing about field hockey. Like I'm starting to figure it out like a little bit, and there's weird rules, and the whistle blows a lot. And I tell people like, you know what I do? It's because I don't really understand all the rules, so I just don't yell at the refs, even if I think they're wrong, because I don't know. I just cheer, and that's it, and it works really well.
Yeah. I feel for our refs, everywhere. I mean, we got some great refs around the state of Maine. We also have some that aren't that great, just like
Right.
every profession you have in the world. But they're not. People think like we don't pay them much, especially at the high school level. At the college level, at least they're making some money. But at
Mm-hmm.
the high school level, at the AAU level, they're not making much money, unless they do 20 games, of course, a day, which some of them do. But so parents need to be giving them the benefit of the doubt, and parents don't know who's watching. That's the other thing.
Yeah, it
So
could be a yeah,
I've heard of some coaches lately that literally, some high level college coaches that are no longer showing up with their shirts like this, so everyone knows who they are, but they're showing up
um,
with black hoodies and sitting in the stand, and so they can really see how people react and players react and stuff like that. So you never know.
has has that gotten worse, or has that always been a thing with the parents and
I think it's gotten worse over the past year since I started coaching, AAU, since I was playing basketball as a kid. I think in general, kids and parents feel they're more entitled. Again, it's in general. So I think it's gotten worse. But not everyone too. We have some great. I've also been there and hearing great cheering by parents. And what I love is when I hear a parent cheering like someone on from the other team.
yeah.
So I mean, I think in a lot of things have gotten worse right now in our country, but that is one of them too.
Has AAU, sort of the rise of AAU, has it changed how opponents deal with each other? Because like, so if you if you're here and in the mid coast, you got the Madomic players and the Oceanside players. And in my day, well, when it was Rockland, they hated each other, but now they're AAU teammates.
Mm.
And so they all know each other and they're more friendly. I feel like they're more friendly than they were back when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think in that way it's a positive change, right? These
Hmm.
kids play with each other off season. And so if you notice, if you look and like, I'll know who plays with each other and different things. So it's kind of fun to watch. Some of the parents might not pick up on it, but
Yeah.
you can have two guys battling at each other, but when someone's on the foul line and they're sitting back at half court, they're chatting with each other, right?
Right.
They're chatting with each other because they know each other from playing on whatever AU team they played on this past season. So I think in that level, it's good. It's good for the kids. I think it's good for them to play with different people than
Hmm.
just the same kids they're playing with on their high school team all the season. I also think it's very important to play on their high school team and focus on playing on their high school team. So, for instance, that was one of the things with AAU that I think is maybe a downfall that some coaches push, like, oh, in the fall, for instance, when a lot of high school teams are running fall teams, informal fall teams. Some AAU coaches say, "No, you got to play for me," or some high school coaches say, "You got to play for me." And I wish we could kind of all get along and
Hmm.
figure out what's best for the kids. So
My thing is always, you hear the AAU hype machine on a kid, but I don't really tend to believe it until I see it for their school team.
yeah,
Because I think it's a different. I mean, is that fair? Is it a different? The lights are brighter there.
well, it actually can go both ways, right? I mean,
Hmm.
on your high school team, you could be a stud because you are one of the better players there, but then you go on the AAU team and everyone's a stud, and so you
Okay.
don't shine as much. Um, the other thing about high school versus AAU, a lot of the coaches I watch, it's kind of a more of an open play style, where in
Right.
high school is maybe more of structured and whatever. So I think it's good to see kids play in both. Can they play in the structured setting that their high school has? Can they play in the wide, kind of more five out, wide open setting that maybe their AAU or travel basketball team coach is running? I think there's positives and negatives to both, frankly. So
Because I mean, if you're in an AAU game, you're not game planning for a kid. You know.
no, not as much as we used to at the high school level or we do at the college level, because you're watching film and
Right.
game planning. Yeah, that absolutely true. That's a good point too. Um, So, like I said, there's positives and negatives. On the town level, there's sometimes politics that play into who's
No.
playing and whatever. Uh,
No.
and
Impossible.
in AEU, I think it's less politics, but then there's also their own politics on some level. So, yeah,
I mean, there's always politics, no matter
yeah.
what you. There's always somebody doesn't get along with somebody, and somebody the whole thing. Um, what would be a thing that if you could change in the relationship between AAU, and you may have already touched on it, in the relationship between AAU and high school basketball, what would you, if you could change one thing, what would it be?
I would love to see the high school coaches and the AU coaches supporting each other, and some of the high school rules make that hard because high school coaches during off seasons are supposed to be hands off for their players, which I
Right.
necessarily don't agree with some of that. I understand why it's there because you don't want high school coaches forcing kids to play every day or do things like or have undue influence, but
Because
um,
there's a couple of bad apples who just make
yeah,
it so you have to have those rules.
yeah, yeah. But in general, I would like to see kind of some back and forth and working together for a kid and say, when I was coaching AAU, I'd try to talk to some of my players' high school coaches and go, "Hey, what do you think they need to work on the off season? What will make them a better player for you? And I'll try to work on it." But it all depends on, some programs are all about just winning every weekend and getting the T-shirt every weekend, and
I got one of them over here. I got the one you sent me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Versus really developing their players and hopefully winning along the way. But yeah, I think that would be it. Like, maybe some communication between the high school and AU coaches, and and trying to work together for the betterment of the kid and the player and development. Um, but in
I
some cases it does work, and some high school coaches were great when I would reach out to them. Some wouldn't want to talk to us at all, and so
Yeah, I mean, if the high school coach has got the kid all winter and they goes, gee, the kid really needs to work on their left hand. They can't
yeah,
they can't go left. I mean, that's good information for you to know because you might not notice that right away, or something that whatever it is they need to work on, and then you go, oh yeah, well let's focus on this, and it seems like that would be a rising tide floats all boats
right.
sort of situation.
And in recruiting for CM, we talked to both.
Hmm.
Like I try to talk to both the high school coach and the AAU coach. Frankly, in general, I find the high school coach more honest with us about the kids' ability and who they
Huh.
are and the thing. But not always. Like if I know the AAU coach, they're pretty honest with us too. But I wish they all would be a little more honest because they don't realize, if you sell me a bill of goods on a kid and he gets here, your next kid you're trying to pitch me, I'm not going to be as open minded about.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, I mean, so I think they're both important to kids. I think connection. Like when I'm talking to a coach, I really look to see not only are they telling me the kind of the normal stuff about a kid, like what can he do, and how connected are they kid, how much do they really care about the kid, because that tells me something about the kid, frankly, as well as
Hmm.
that. So.
It's because we don't have the shot clock when they get to college.
Well, don't get me started on that. I think we need a shot clock very badly in Maine high school basketball. I love the shot clock. So that was something new to me too.
Hmm. Sure.
From coaching at Maine high school and Maine AAU, the shot clock is so wonderful because you can't just kill the clock.
Hmm.
You Um, when you see some of those highlights of games where you got a coach just dribbling at half court, it drives me crazy. And so I don't think they're behind necessarily because they learn quick. At
Yeah.
least the guys we have, they learn quick, and frankly they want it. It moves the game. It makes higher scoring games.
And it's not a weird concept to them because are watching college and
Yeah,
NBA. They're like, what's this new clock I have to pay
yeah.
attention to?
No,
Oh my goodness.
it's something they catch on to quick. So I wouldn't say they're behind. I think, um, we have to say to them at the beginning, you're dribbling too much.
Hmm.
Right? Or you're taking to, like, yeah, you got 10 seconds in the backcourt, but don't use it. Get up there because if you use 10 seconds in the backcourt, now we only got 20 seconds in the front court. So get up there in 3 seconds. So we got 27 seconds. So those little things, like, hey, move it up. You can't walk it up the court like you used to in high school and set up plays. Like, you got to get up there and then set it up if you're going to do something. Again, I wouldn't say they're behind. I think the game will advance better in the Maine high school basketball, in my opinion, if we get a
Hmm.
shot. And
Does it make it harder to evaluate kids?
um, sometimes you have to think about, I mean, sometimes we'll say, okay, well, the way they're playing, they wouldn't be able to play at our level because you got to move a lot quicker and do a lot of things. But you can see those transitions, and you can see what like. You know,
Uh,
will do, for instance, because Camden was slower on moving the ball up, didn't make it say, okay, I can't see that he can't transition to us. We just got to work on this and that. So,
right. I would think it would show better the basketball IQ because you're having to operate on this deadline or this timeline, where you have to speed things up a little bit and you don't have all day to find the right pass.
yeah, no,
You
I
know,
think that's true. That's true.
and
Like you
you've
said,
got to you got to move
quicker,
quickly.
quicker. Yeah,
And you've got to be able to get into your second action. If the play doesn't work, you can't bring it all the way back out maybe to half court and start it over again and try the whole thing from
right.
scratch. You got to adjust and make sure you're getting at least a halfway decent shot, um, you know, out of the
Yep,
possession. Otherwise, you're going to not playing very long.
yep, you're right.
Okay, so let's. Other than the shot clock, what is a thing if they gave you the keys to the MPA and they said you can do whatever you want? you have full dictator power over the MPA, what would you do?
I, I I think the MPA in general does do a pretty good job. So I can't think of like major things I would change about our high school basketball in the state of Maine other than the shot clock. I think that should be the priority. And I understand what some schools are saying. It's tough to find volunteers. It's tough to, they don't have the money to pay someone to do it. You know, we do it at the college level and we don't have a bunch of money either. But, I think it would be a nice, it's one of those things. If you do it, they got to do it. Right.
Right.
So it frustrates me every year that they don't make that change, but that would be the biggest. I can't think of anything other major things. I love the tournament. I love all that about high school basketball.
Do you get to enjoy the tournament more now in that you're not, confined to the Civic Center and you can go see anything, really?
Oh yeah, no, w- it, the tournament's so much fun to go as a college coach and watch the kids play, and also when I had two boys playing in it, it's a lot more stressful. Right now,
Yeah.
I have my boys are out of college. They're both in college now, and so there's none of that stress for me. I just get to literally watch and have fun. And I'm actually, one of these. I had parents say something to me this past year is like, you don't really cheer, you don't really say anything. I just enjoy watching the game and
Yeah.
I'm watching the little things, not the big things sometimes. And so, yeah, no, the tournament's a lot of fun to come watch.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed is because my brother was coaching and I would help him, and so I would get really invested in those games. And now he's not coaching anymore, and you get that step back, and you're just like, oh, okay, I can just appreciate this for what it is, and I don't have to sit there thinking, okay, how are we going to stop this kid, or what's the hole in this team's system? What can I? Is there anything I can do to like contribute in a way, in whatever small way to say, oh, hey, what if we do this? And would that work? But it's so much nicer just still to sit there and like take in a full day of tournament games
Yeah.
and be like, oh, wow, that kid is awesome.
Yeah. The other thing I love about the tournament games is you might go there to watch one player.
Hmm.
Next thing you know, you're like, wow, I actually like his teammate a little better.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, like, maybe he's really good, but I didn't like his attitude on this. But I really like this kid's attitude. I like this kid how he hustles, and so that's kind of fun. Like finding new players that way too.
Well, one of those kids for me this year was JT Pound. Like, I didn't really have like a strong vibe either way on Freeport. And I was sort of waiting for G and waiting for Jameer Rose and those games. And then there's the Freeport game, and I'm like, wow, this kid can play. And I think he just shot the lights out in that turn, that especially I think in that first game. And I was just like, wow, this is cool.
Well, I mean, I've been spoiled because I've been coaching him for years, and I've been able to watch his development. I call him Mr. Fundamental. The kid does everything right.
Hmm.
He's, from some basketball players, he's probably boring to watch because he's not going to jump up and two hand slam it or whatever. But he does the pick and roll right. He does the post game right. He can pick and roll. He can pick and pop. He is a dangerous player, and he's also an amazing kid to coach because he's just so level headed. He's quiet on some level. And he's a kind of a yes sir, no sir guy and gets the job done. And you got to do something wrong to make him upset. And so I just can't wait to see his further development because in his past 2 years of high school, he has developed so much that, once we get him in the weight room and see him develop that way, I think he's going to really be a good player for us. And he's a great, great kid. Good family too.
He sort of feels like the kid who, if he rolls up in the open gym, you're like, yeah, all right, we'll take him. And then you're like, did that kid just score 30 on us?
Uh-huh. He is exactly that. I mean, it's the same thing some of our players are saying. We've got some kids that can jump up over JT and dunk, but he's the one hitting the rollout threes on them, and things like that, or getting
Yeah.
the rebound when they think they can out jump him, and next thing you know, he's outboxed them the right way, and they can't get over him. So yeah, he's definitely that type of player. And
Uh,
we've, like I said, I've talked about earlier, like Ben Francis, he's going to be a surprise for some players. That kid can really play, and he plays hard, and he's a mainstay boy, actually, a Northern
is he?
mainstay. Yeah. Um, and, I'm going to be excited to watch some of these Maine players. We got some great, you know, we don't have many Cooper Flags in the state of Maine, but we got
Right.
some really good basketball players in the state of Maine.
Oh yeah.
So,
Ben Francis is one of
Southern
those.
Maine.
Oh, Ben
Yeah,
Francis is
go
one of
ahead.
those players. Every time I see him, I'm like, oh my god, this kid can play. Like he just seems like a nightmare to try to guard.
Well, and he's one of those players. He's one of those players, for example, you might go watch his point guard play because
Yep.
that's who you're going to watch, right? And then you're like, wow, who's this other kid?
Yeah.
That's doing some of the dirty work and
Yeah, you're at that Oceanside Orno game and you're like, okay, well, I want to see Pierce Walston versus
yeah,
Carter Galley. And you're like, what is this kid doing?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. So
What is a thing? Oh, okay, one last question for you, and I'll let you go. So let's say you're a parent and you think your kid's pretty good, and you haven't deluded yourself into thinking they're the next Cooper Flag. How did they get on a program like CMCC's radar?
well, first they got to use social media in the proper way. Second, they got to reach out to coaches. And frankly, the kid should reach out to the coach, in my opinion.
Okay.
I take an email from a kid or a phone call from a kid better than I do a parent. Not that I won't look at the parent stuff, but they need to advocate for themselves. Um, the other thing I would tell parents is don't discredit any level of basketball. People always think D1, D2. We have amazing D3 programs in the state of Maine. People don't even realize there's like 7 different college league. There's the NJCAA, the NAIA, there's us, the USCAA, and there's even more, the CCCAA. So there's a lot of different options out there for a kid to play.
Right.
And you should be focused not on your kid playing D1 or D2, that your kid playing, if they really want to play, first of all, don't force your kid to play at a level they don't want to play at. But like what really we catches us is when a kid comes to us and says, "Hey, I want to play at the highest level I can play at. Not I want to play D1, not I want to play D2. I want to play at the highest level I can play at." So those are some things. And the other thing, is we are a community college, but people really should come check us out. We are a beautiful campus in Auburn. We have amazing majors, everything from business, accounting. We have an amazing criminal justice degree, nursing degree, but we also have all the trades, which, when I was little, they pushed us away from the trades.
Yeah.
Now we need trades, right? So we've got the building construction, we've got the HVAC, we've got everything. So we've got an amazing school, and we're doing some great things with our sports programs. Andrew Morong, our girls coach, is like 90% win percentage in our conference, and has won 3 national championships. You
It's
know,
crazy.
Coach Gagne has won a national championship, and hopefully in the next couple of years here we'll win another one.
Yeah.
So there's some great things about our program. The other thing is we got the free tuition program right now in all of Maine community colleges.
The
So,
student loan debt sucks.
oh, absolutely. And that's the other thing is, don't put your kid at D2 and them not play and have to take out a bunch of loans because they probably didn't get one of the 10 scholarships, right?
Mm-hmm.
Versus coming to us, walking away from 1 or 2 years at our level, almost debt free,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe earning a scholarship that they can go and get their 4-year degree.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. A 4-year degree you might not even use if you're like me.
yeah, you might not, right? Or a 4-year degree that just build on to your graduate degree that I got
Yeah.
and that I use every day. So, um, you
I have
know,
a degree in broadcast communications, and this is the only way right here that I use it.
yeah, well, there you go.
So,
Everyone's different, right? One of my
right.
friends has a criminal justice degree and he works in the computer field.
Sure.
I also don't think your degree is always the most important thing. It's about learning how to learn and getting an education base of some level. But
Mm-hmm.
there's some great things happening at our community colleges in the state of Maine. Of course, I'm a little biased. I think Central Maine's the best, but you know, parents really shouldn't be shying away from them. And we have some really good basketball. If people think their kid, the other thing I think is if you think your kid can play at whatever level, go watch that level.
Yeah.
Um, like I do it with our guys. Our guys that say they want to play at D1. My son's working for up at U Maine with their basketball team, learning how to be a coach under some amazing coaches up there. And we bought season tickets up there. And what I did is I took some of our players up because they all want to be D1 players. I go, come watch, come see what you can play and what that really looks like. So,
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go because someone's trying to walk into this room.
okay, no
Thank you
problem.
so much, Steve, and good luck this coming season.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's gonna do it. Thanks so much again to Steve Carey for joining me. Really, really great stuff there. This podcast has been a production of MaineBasketballRankings.com, your source for the most comprehensive coverage of Maine high school basketball from Ashland to York and everywhere in between. This podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts and a bunch of places you don't. If you enjoy this, please vote with you vote digitally. It's leave a review, subscribe, do all of those things. It really does help out with algorithms and all of that fun nonsense. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. Until next time, thanks for listening.